Bloody Manchester United. If you're wondering why there's no references to Ten Hag being sacked, it's because this episode was filmed before that happened. Would you like to offer a discount code adjective?
Someone said yum yum. Yum yum. What? Let's just go with. Can you just go finger licking?
Finger licking. Oh,
finger licking.
God.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast. It's our Q&A episode. I'm your host, Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley. You're in the office, John. I'm at home. I was supposed to be in. My apologies. I haven't stood you up. The trains have let me down, basically, the train system in the UK. Do remember, though, that this episode is sponsored by NordVPN, and there is a finger licking good discount code in the description down below. Damn it, I did laugh.
What a weird word to say, Dan. What the hell?
Oh, yeah, I wonder why I picked that. If you want the best discount code available, there is a link in the description down below. I think you get 4 months for free when you sign up for 2 years. So it is a great deal. And there is a no risk money back guarantee as well if you are unhappy within 30 days or so. John Townley, how are you, mate?
Really hot in here and kind of struggling. So I may take off my jumper halfway through the episode. I'm doing well. Shame Villa drew at the weekend, obviously, and the manner of it is still frustrating. But yeah, doing fine. As we're talking this episode and another episode coming out shortly, 2 more league games. Is that right? Before the November international break. These games happen really quickly, and we're already 9 games into the season, which doesn't feel like a lot. But it kind of is,
isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is a lot already. I was saying to you in a voice note, we're like 10th game by the weekend already. It's we're not a third of the way through the campaign at all, but we're kind of entering that territory. I'm doing well, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. I've kind of got over my sniffles. I think I've passed them over to you instead, although we've not seen each other. So, you haven't caught it from me.
No.
We will talk about kind of the bigger picture surrounding Villa's start to the season in a episode that we're going to film and release tomorrow. So do come back for that, because I think this is the Q&A. You've clicked on this episode on podcast feeds or YouTube to hear questions be answered. So I don't want to go and talk about Villa's kind of start to the season for 20 minutes because that would be unfair. You're here for questions and we'll get to them in a second. Before we get into the questions though, just for a couple of minutes, just give me some kind of general thoughts on Bournemouth, specifically that one game, not the bigger picture. Yeah,
just really frustrating in the end. I mean, Villa, I thought, played really well for the most part. Emery said after the game that it was one of the best performances, but in parts at least, some of the best football that Villa had played this season. And I totally agree with that. The amount of times that we would kind of cut them open, it was just kind of the finishing touch or the final ball that was lacking. And, that's going to happen in matches. We're not going to be so clinical that we score 5 goals in every game. If we were that, then we would be scoring that amount of goals because we have real quality on the pitch. But yeah, that last part really, Rodgers had a good chance in the first half. Obviously, Watkins went around the keeper and was at a tight angle, didn't quite make the most of that opportunity. So we could have been 2-0 up inside the first 10 minutes or something, or at least got 1 goal. Yeah, in the end, we were kind of made to pay for our lack of control in the last 10 minutes, which was really frustrating because that's unlike an Emery side. So that's a real frustration for me. We had 3 points in the bag and we really have blown 2 points here. It's not sometimes when people say, oh, have we lost 2 points if we drew against Bournemouth? Well, if Bournemouth had, scored on the hour mark and we just couldn't score, that wouldn't feel I never really feel like that 2 points drop because it's, that's on you kind of thing. Yeah. Like we deserve a point because we didn't play well enough to win the match, but we absolutely did on Saturday. So that's the real frustration for me. We absolutely have dropped 2 points, and I won't be too critical because we played well enough. I'd be critical if we were held to a draw and it was us who couldn't break them down, although I've said that we had chances to score goals. It really did come down to that last set piece, and the last 10 minutes lacked control. We deserved to win the match, but we paid the price, is what I'm trying to say. So that's the big frustration.
I just want to ask you very quickly about Emery's comments, not specifically what he said, but just about how we feel about them. And we all get to see what Emery said, but you're like in the room, you speak to him a couple of times a week in pressers. Do you ever feel like you're swayed in your opinions based off what Emery said, or the opposite, that you're like vindicated, that you felt like we played well, and then Emery says the same and you go, well, that's what I felt? Or do you ever come to it and think, I don't think we played very well there, but Emery says, well, we did, and you kind of go, oh, well, if Emery says we played well, that's how I feel? Yeah,
I understand that. In this game specifically, no, I thought Villa, I left my seat feeling really peeved that we didn't win because I know we played well, and it's sometimes a different situation because again, if we had drawn the game and the Man United game is probably the best example. I left my seat thinking, okay, like we didn't deserve to win. So it is what it is. That's on us. But yeah, the Brentford one was a completely different situation. I was annoyed and frustrated and angry. Bournemouth, sorry, what did I say?
Brentford.
I always get them confused. Yeah, I was angry after the Bournemouth game, not specifically at the players, but more because of the manner of it. And yeah, we should have controlled the game better. But yeah, after talking to Emery and leaving the ground, I felt a bit more like, well, you know what? We played well. And if we play well in the games that we play, more often than not, we're going to win. And we'll get top 4 if we play like that every week, even against better opponents. So yeah, it was just that final 10 minutes that really did cost us. But again, I'm seeing Tottenham not play well against Palace and they lose. That's not good. Us playing well against Bournemouth and not winning, yeah, it doesn't sound great. But again, we're looking for consistency here and over the course of the season. If we play like that, we'll be fine. If Tottenham play like that in some of their games, they won't be fine. So I was content with the performance, obviously, because it was good, but the result was really frustrating. But again, I wasn't going to be too critical about anyone or anything because, number one, we've started really well. We're 11 games unbeaten, but also we'll learn from that. It wasn't as if we played poorly again after a Champions League match. And for me, there was no hangover. I know that's what the other pundits might say, they drew to Man United, now they drew to Bournemouth. If you watch the game, it wasn't a hangover at all. We should have been 2-0 up in 10 minutes. So far from a hangover. Bournemouth were also a good team. They went man for man, which I actually think helped us, to be fair. But yeah, you're going to have to compete well against that team because they're very physical, they're pretty direct. They go from back to front very quickly. So yeah, happy with the performance. Really frustrated that we dropped 2 points because they were in the basket. They were there, and we kind of blew it from a set piece, which is massive frustration. But Emery, like myself and like other fans, I think we could probably see the bigger picture after spending like an hour after the match, kind of just getting it out of your system and then realising, you know what, it is what it is. You can't win all the games. At least we played well. Yeah.
Just hold fire on the bigger picture talk. We'll discuss that tomorrow. I like the phrase "in the basket" rather than "in the bag" for the points. I might start using that. Question time. Although the first one is not a question, it's more of a comment, but it's from Dan, who says, hopefully a constructive comment. I didn't agree with you. This is directed to me. I didn't agree with you digging out Cash for the non-penalty. You'll know how much he's trolled, and it was a good tackle and a bad dive by Semenyo. Appreciate it was initial take, but we don't need to provide false fuel for the trolls. There's a few questions about Matty Cash, or we'll kind of answer them in a second, but I wanted to open with this because it's this is like the podcast equivalent of like a newspaper delivering a correction, isn't it? After a few days, like, correction, we were wrong about the headline or whatever. Now, in the post-match show, I spoke about Matty Cash and the non-penalty incident, the Semenyo dive. And my initial feeling was, having not seen it and just coming straight out of the stadium, an hour later I'm on the podcast, I felt really like, what's he diving in for? Like, why is he going for it? Why is he giving the referee even an option to make a decision? Why is he giving Semenyo the chance to maybe buy a foul, even if there isn't really much there? He's got a reputation for giving away penalties, as frustrating as that is. He's got a reputation for being I keep wanting to say an escaped goat now as a genuine thing. He's got a reputation for being a scapegoat. Why do it? And the kind of response to that is, well, what's he supposed to do? Like, never go for a challenge again? And I get that's not feasible either. But having seen it back on Villa TV a couple of times, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, Cash has actually won the ball. And I watched it another time and went, actually, no, Semenyo has got a touch on it and takes the ball away. So Cash does not win the ball. It's not a good tackle because he doesn't get it. He's gone in rashly, I still feel like. And yes, it is a dive. But if the timing's slightly different, it's not a dive, and Cash makes contact because he doesn't win the ball, and he would have took the man, and he would have given away a penalty. So I don't like this kind of idea that I'm providing fuel for people to troll Matty Cash. I don't feel like I've got that responsibility. And if people listen to this and go, well, Dan Rolinson said on the Can't Be podcast this, so I can also have that opinion. Don't have your own opinions about football. Don't take my word for it. But my initial take after the game, I still feel the same way, to be honest.
I don't think anyone would be arguing, if I'm being totally honest, if it was given us a penalty. I thought that it was in real time, and looking at the replays, I was surprised that the referee didn't give it, because we definitely have seen those given as fouls. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, we were looking at how Semenyo, or we would have been looking at about how Semenyo dragged his foot, and then we would be saying, oh, but it's dived, And I understand that, but I just feel like in 2024, that probably is a foul. And I think if that happened down the other end, in front of the Holt end, we'd probably get a penalty for it. I don't think the referee
So you actually think it was a penalty?
I do, yeah. Yeah.
So I do think it was a dive, but I still agree. My point here is not about is it a penalty or not. It's that my take was Cash was still rash.
Yeah, and whether we can have a different debate and say whether we want that to be a penalty or not, as in a neutral, if that was in a Leicester versus Brentford game, maybe some fans may say, yeah, but we don't want diving in the game at all. So he's dragged his foot to kind of take the contact, therefore it shouldn't be a penalty. And other fans will say, yeah, but the defender shouldn't be going to ground, and he's given the referee a decision to make, and he's essentially blocked Semenyo from making progress because he can't then get to the ball, and Cash didn't win it. If he did win it, it might have been a slice, but that's not enough contact. So it's much more detailed of a situation than what it looked in real time. I thought Cash just wiped him out. Whether Cash did or not as well, he looked a bit sheepish, but I think 9 out of 10 refs probably give that as a penalty, to be honest. And I was very surprised to see VAR not giving it. That's just my opinion. Again, we have questions on Cash, and it's not the first time that it's kind of dived in the box. If I'm not mistaken, it was the Bournemouth match last season where he did something very similar against Milos Kerkez. And then Solanke scored a penalty. Yeah, that was good. And that was much more clear-cut because he wiped his... he took him off his feet, sort of thing, and he wasn't near the ball. But this one was a bit more, there's a bit more to it because again, Semenyo's dragged his feet, and would he have gone over if he didn't do that? I don't know. But ultimately, Cash has made the decision to go in a bit recklessly, I think, because the ball wasn't, say it wasn't there to be won. Potentially it was, but I just think he wasn't in enough danger as a player to think, okay, I have to lunge in now. And you're not going to go for the ball there and not take the man as well. Yeah. I think it was probably a penalty, and that's me as being kind of as unbiased as I possibly can be. Yeah, that's just my take. And I think Cash as well would probably... I don't think there would be too much complaints on his behalf, either from his teammates or himself, if that was given. Because I think if the referee pointed to the spot, would we have seen 6 Villa players going over and saying, I
think it's one of those ones that if the ref had given it, I don't think VAR overturn it either.
No, definitely not. I really can't see that. And again, people might be shouting at the screen now saying, yeah, but he dragged his foot to dive. I think football has moved on from that a bit. I think we've seen plenty of players initiate contact. We see Harry Kane do it all the time and win penalties. And yes, it's a bit frustrating. But seriously, if Leon Bailey did that, or if Ollie Watkins did that, John Duran did it against Wickham. And to be fair, that one was a bit more blatant because that was never a penalty. But in that moment, if it wasn't Semenyo as a Villa player, I think we'd all be saying that's a penalty. He's taking him out, whether he's dragged his foot a little bit or not. I also think that if you watch it in slow motion, it always favours... Well, it can favour one side or the other, but in full speed, that's 100 miles an hour. Cash has wiped him out, not really taking the ball. If it's in the box, I think that's a penalty.
I don't want to be too harsh on Matty Cash specifically, because like I said, we'll open the show with he is a scapegoat and whatever else. But
this is just one of the main talking points in the game. Obviously, it creates a lot of debate. So,
of course, yeah. But I think I'm aware of how I phrase this without making myself just sound like an idiot, because good players give away penalties from time to time. Like Van Dijk's one of the best defenders in the Premier League, or Saliba, or whoever you think is the best. They will give a penalty away on whatever occasion, and you think, okay, well, even good players do it. But I think a better defender in that situation doesn't do what Cash did.
Possibly. As you say, then he's given the ref a decision to make. I think he's a bit reckless in what he's done, maybe. To be honest, I think Cash plays with a lot of kind of, I don't know exactly what...
It's kind of on the edges, isn't it?
A lot of intensity, a lot. Yeah, exactly. And that can definitely work for us as well. Like we've said previously, when he played in a different kind of role, he's that kind of box crashing player, and it's playing with like speed and intensity, and it's here and it's now. And that I often thought helped Villa last season, especially going forward, because we were so measured sometimes, and sometimes you just wanted a player to break the lines and go. And that was Cash. Fantastic. Going the other way, sometimes that can be to the detriment of his game. And yeah, that's something that I'm sure he's going to, try and work on now. I think he'll be more wary to dive in tackles in the box. I say that, but as I said, last season he did it against Bournemouth back in April. I would say it's a bit of an issue as well, because Villa now he's playing a bit more of a reserved role, so he's got more defensive responsibilities, really. I don't want to call it mistake or an error, because a lot of people were saying, well, it wasn't a penalty, the ref didn't give it, so it wasn't a mistake. But as I say, I think if that's in a different game, if it's at Old Trafford, a penalty, no doubt about it.
Okay, you mentioned Matty Cash's kind of box crashing there, and I think we did a whole video about it, didn't we, last year, or maybe a written panel piece or something? I can't remember. Anyway,
I think we did. Yeah.
James says, Is Matty Cash living off his own legacy as this bombing forward right back? You've both used this term when you chose your lineup pre-Bournemouth, but when you actually watch him play, he doesn't really do that anymore and always looks for a backwards pass whenever he's on the pitch. Now, whether he always looks for a backwards pass is an overstatement or not, I think we're all very familiar with Matty Cash going forward, not having an option, kind of Cruyff turning back on himself and going backwards, which in some instances, keep the ball is fine. But that probably happens far too often when there is a forward pass and he doesn't make it. You're right in what you've just said. He has got more defensive responsibilities now. He is asked to do more defending than going forward more often than not, because we've played that system of it was constant before and he wasn't bombing forward either. I said in the post-match, I don't know whether you listened to it, and I was maybe being a bit harsh on different players there, but when Villa play differently in games, and I think there's a question on this later about sitting back, that doesn't benefit players like Cash because they're not great defenders. Like Pau Torres isn't an amazing defender. Ian Matson, he's still a young player. Like he's better going forward. So Villa dropping back and inviting pressure kind of goes against everything we're good at. Like you want to just see us play the way we do. But then the reverse argument would probably also be true that if we'd still conceded, you'd say, well, why is Emery not shutting up shop? Why aren't we sitting back? So in that instance, you probably can't win.
He's been asked to do a different role, which firstly, I think any kind of criticism and stuff like that needs to be balanced with that. I think Cash will probably say himself he'd rather be flying up the wing, playing as a winger almost. I mean, he was playing for Forest as a winger at points and as a midfielder, and then transitioned to a right back for like one season, I think, and has played in that role ever since. But a right back, at least under Dean Smith, that has said is going up and down the wing, using his energy, which is probably one of his key attributes. But now he's been asked to defend a bit more, play a bit more kind of streetwise in what is sometimes a back three. Obviously, Luke Dane plays as a left winger, essentially. And yeah, I just feel like because of the nature of his game, these things may happen. But then there's also times when, for example, the Man United game, United should have scored from that counter-attack at the end of the match. I'm pretty certain it was Cash who blocked it. I can't quite remember exactly, but it was like a 2-on-1 situation. And he does really well to stop that from basically becoming a 1-on-1 against Emi Martinez, which Martinez will probably save, to be fair. But Cash was there to intervene. If I kind of go through some stats, he has more clearances per 90 than any Villa player in the team. And only Luca Dean has more interceptions of the Villa defence. That is, obviously, Onana is higher because that's the way that he plays in the middle of the pitch. So it's not, we're not digging him out as a whatever it may be. However, a lot of Villa fans, if you go on social media, will say that, oh, is that the weak link? Oh, do we need to upgrade? Or does this need to happen? I always say that competition throughout the squad is absolutely necessary. And
pivotal now in the way the game is. You have to have lots of good players across every position.
Yeah, and while we have Conser, that is essentially that competition, we have Carlos, for me, who is almost like the competition for Cash in a completely different way, in that Conser will play either at centre-back or right-back, depending on if either is Carlos fit or does Emery want to play Cash over Carlos. I feel like that's the situation here, and it was no surprise that obviously Carlos would have been make weight for Geertruida, who would then be competition for Cash Conser at centre-back. So competition is always very important. And I think if we had got Geertruida over the line, I think that would push Cash on even more. That's not to suggest that he's not working incredibly hard to rectify some of the things in his game that he can improve. And again, I just think he's doing a new role here, and this isn't the same player that we signed 4 years ago. I do think Cash has improved massively. He's part of a team that is playing in the top four, playing in the Champions League, going for the top four. Now he's been asked to do something a bit different. I say a bit different. It's quite a lot different in terms of what he wants to be doing in the team. Obviously, he's not going to be kicking up a fuss, but firstly because of the kind of attitude he has to get to where he's come from so rapidly, takes a lot. But also, he knows that that's his role in the team now, and he's going to have to, improve some aspects that some fans and again myself, I think there probably was a penalty the weekend. Improve some things that are probably quite obvious to him and to Emery as well. So I'm happy with kind of where we are with that. You just wish that we could have had Geertruida over the line. I don't know if there's probably going to be a question coming up soon about competition, etc. But for me, I think that's really important across the team because it's probably the one position in the team where people are looking at, question marks about, can we improve there? Can we do this and that? I think, we probably can in terms of competition. And I think then we'll see those question marks disappear. And it was only a couple of weeks ago as well when we were saying, we need Cash in the team. Carlos wasn't playing particularly well. That comes down to lack of options, in my opinion, because I don't think you can rely on Carlos over the course of a season. He's done well in the last few games, definitely. But it feels like he's kind of, at any moment, he could kind of break down. And that might not necessarily be his fault. He is a kind of a big strapping guy, and he's 31 now. So Villa can't rely on that too much. In January, in the summer, we'll probably be going back in for a player in that position. Let's wait and see what happens.
Okay, let's move on to something slightly different now from Alex, who says, why does Onana keep getting subbed off at half-time? I understand squad management, etc., but it's happened in the last few games. We lose that defensive presence when he goes off. I saw somebody reply to either this tweet or a different one saying that did he only sign a contract to play 45 minutes at a time?
Yeah. Firstly, I think he's done very well, Onana. He's done good. He's scored first 3 away games, I think, for Villa, if I'm not mistaken. But this is clearly a work in progress. And I don't think this isn't a criticism at all. We signed him for £50 million. He's 22 now, I think. And he's got a lot to learn, which is a good thing, by the way. I'm not saying that he's not, good enough. 23. Absolutely not. 23. I feel like a lot of outsiders will look at this Villa team and think Onana is, one of our best players this season. And maybe that's true. Maybe I'm being, I don't know, negative or whatever. But for me, I just feel like he's got a lot to learn, but there's a lot of room for growth there, and I think Emery can see that as well, and Onana will know that as well. I don't know how to put this, but Tielemans, for example, I think has been outstanding, like easily one of our best players. For me, Onana hasn't been that, but that isn't. I'm not trying to make that out as a criticism because he's only just joined and he's come from Sean Dyche ball to Unai ball, which is a massive difference, and it's something that he wants to be doing. But I expect in the next 6 months we'll be seeing a player who develops pretty quickly because he's going to be continuing to play. The thing on Barkley, I'm not surprised to see Barkley come on in the matches that we have because of the kind of the game state as such. The teams who we're playing, it's been an Everton, a Wolves, Bournemouth, these teams that we're struggling to break down or we're losing at the time. You would bring on a player who's more progressive in Barkley. Just quickly on those numbers, if you look at key passes per 90, it's mad. This Tielemans is nearly on 10 passes into the final third, per 90, which is a remarkable number, really. Pau Torres is on 6 for kind of context. Ross Barkley is nearly on 6 himself per 90, and then Onana's down at 3.5. So clearly, midfield duo of Tielemans and Barkley is more destructive in their passing than Onana is. Maybe if he stayed on the pitch and it was later on in games, he would be racking up more numbers like that. I don't know. But yeah, I think we're more solid when Onana's playing because his physical profile defensively, he gets around the pitch really well. He eats up ground, twice as much as what any other player could in our team probably. But when we want that bit more kind of, I don't know, we want to be a bit more cute and we want to break down a low block or find spaces, find gaps. I mean, Barkley came off the bench and scored, didn't he, against Bournemouth? So that's basically the answer to the question. I don't think we should be expecting Onana to be a £50 million player here and now. I say that, he is absolutely worth £50 million. I'm not saying that, but in a year, he could be worth £80 million because he comes on leaps and bounds. Yeah. And I expect him to be doing that because he's going to be a quick learner, I'm sure, because he comes across as very intelligent guy, a willing learner. So I'm not kind of putting extra pressure on him now to think that, he's coming off on the 45th minute again. Well, are we sure about this player? Nothing like that at all. So that's why I kind of started this section of, he's been good and that's okay. He was never going to be our absolute star man right away, I didn't think. But in 2 years, it'll be outstanding. And that's the kind of the key point for me. So he needs to be getting these games, getting these experiences, learning, and he'll be fine. We'll have, I said it when he signed, his profile is a rarity at the top level, and we'll have a player that no one else has, essentially, in their midfield. Thumbs up for me. It's all fine.
Yeah, and that question's asking about, losing the defensive presence. Obviously, Barkley is the one that gives away the free kick that Bournemouth score from. And Onana could have given that away. He's a better defender than Barkley, but anyone could have given away a silly foul at that stage anyway. And you'd probably say a more inexperienced player like Onana is more likely to do that. And Barkley is one of the more experienced pros. You wouldn't expect to do something like that. The way to assess Onana, and maybe we are being more harsh than others. I think when the season started, the first 3-4 games, say that like it was ages ago. We've only played another 3 or 4 since then. But I think when we were like trying to build a best 11, we were both like, well, I really want Onana in there because of his physical profile and what he offers is different. And you probably still would want him in there. I think now you kind of more likely to go, well, he's good, but I'd rather have Kamara in there.
Possibly. I mean, that's a really interesting question because I think over the next 2 matches we'll start to see exactly what that looks like because, again, in another video that we'll be doing, 2 really difficult games, 2 games that will teach us a lot about what Emery wants to do, I think. Kamara doesn't look like completely up to speed yet, but even when he came on against Bournemouth, he broke up the play a few times and you thought, okay, like that's good. We've missed that. That's nice to see that he's still able to do it. But yeah, just with Onana, it's I just don't want to give any added pressure on him. He's come for £50 million, which for Villa is a huge signing, considering Buendia was 38, I think. Obviously, the kind of the big Douglas Luiz thing, who's going to replace him? Villa had said to me it was Tielemans, and it's absolutely proven to be the case. So Onana is doing a different role. How that works with Kamara, don't know. But I think what we do know is that if Villa are struggling to break a team down or need something different, we absolutely have that in Ross Barkley. And as we said last year with Leon Bailey and Moussa Diaby, there's nothing wrong with having starters and finishers. If Onana is your starter and you can defend set pieces and stay solid, keep a clean sheet until half time, that sort of thing, fine. You got 45 minutes then to win the match. And maybe that is going to be Onana in 6 months because of his presence in both boxes, because of his ability to then play more progressive and link play better. Because I think that's what he's probably got to work on. And again, I expect him to do that. But for now, you have a 30-year-old in Ross Barkley who's been there and done it, is in the best form he's been in for many years. He's fully capable of turning that draw into a win, and that's what he did against Bournemouth. Unfortunately, he then turns the draw into the win to the draw again. I say that, Villa still have a set piece to defend.
Yeah.
In my video after the match, like in that moment, I think you'd struggle to find a player who wouldn't take the man down, or there's a fan, because I said it myself, I was like, take him out because you don't know what's going to happen. He might have, I think it's Tavernier, I can't quite remember. He might have gone down the line and crossed it and they scored anyway because we'd have less players in the box. I think you'd rather back us to defend a set piece against a Bournemouth side who had the fewest aerial duels won in the Premier League last season. We were second worst. You'd have backed us to have done that. And unfortunately we didn't. But hey, that's a learning curve.
Let's talk about solutions to win games then from Luke, who says, does Emery's plan against lower ranking opponents seem to be rope-a-dope? This has worked a lot this season, Everton, Fulham, etc. But we have seen it backfire a few times too, Ipswich, Bournemouth. John, are you familiar with the term rope-a-dope?
I had a vague idea of what it was from before, and then you sent me what it meant anyway. So I absolutely don't know.
So just a very quick clarification. I'd also heard of this, but I wanted to not make ourselves look like absolute on the podcast.
Leading someone on kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah. It's a boxing term, Luke says. Letting your opponent get weaker shots in, leading them into a false sense of security, then attacking strongly when the opponent has gotten tired. I think Muhammad Ali did it first, so comes from the best. So, yeah, this kind of idea of like, kind of give Bournemouth chances, like concede possession, concede chances, because you think that they might not have the quality to finish them anyway, or, maybe I'm extending the analogy here, or the metaphor a bit too deeply, but kind of giving them a bit of room to play, basically, and then all of a sudden going, bang, we go on the counter, we can score 2 easier than they can, and we win the game. And that does work, and it can work, but we can also see that sometimes it doesn't. What do you think of Luke's kind of assessment of Emery's game plans, I suppose?
I get it. What I would say is I don't think you can do that in Premier League football because without John Duran's thunder punt, then we probably don't win that game. And we scored in the 90th minute or 89th minute against Wolves. I think it's a very risky strategy to play. I'd like to think that we meant that. We're doing it. We're kind of taking the scenic route to 3 points as such. Can't quite agree because we had chances in those games as well to score, and we didn't. Like, I get the point. The premise being that we're not kind of going all guns blazing, and then we kind of tire out, and all of a sudden, what's plan B? Like, what do we do here? And it invites the opposition on, that sort of thing. Kind of like what Brentford had against us last season when we went 2-0 up. And all of a sudden, we just could not handle them. For whatever reason, they found a weakness to score 3 goals in like 10 minutes or something. And we were kind of left on the other side of it thinking, like, wow, we've got we've got business to do here. So, yeah, I don't think that's exactly what Emery wants us to do. What I would say is that we've played a lot of those kind of teams at the start of the season when I don't think we're anywhere near our best yet, and that's exciting because we're like 5 points off the top of the league or something. We're in 4th. I think we'll know more about what we are after the next couple of games, and then we'll kind of find our identity a bit better, I think. And then once we play Southampton and Brentford at home in December, I think, which are the matches after the next 2, I think, or after Chelsea or something like that. I can't remember. But those 2 games specifically, targeting 6 points, they're against both. There's 2 different teams in styles, but 2 teams that Villa, you want to see them play their game, and kind of, you have to earn the right to do that, but should be able to do that. I'd like to think that after that, because we would have played Chelsea away, we'd have played Tottenham, Liverpool, would have found ourselves a little bit more, and then we'll really see what we are. But for now, I think we're still kind of learning about different things. For example, in the middle of the pitch, you have Onana, who is still learning his role. I think Cash is in a different role, and Rodgers has not played there as well either, behind Watkins. We've often relied on Duran to come off the bench. Bailey isn't the best form of his life either, or he probably is in the second best form of his life after before last season, to be fair. But do you see my point? Where that you can kind of go through the team and say, he's got another level, there's another level there, and you can contextualise that with, because tactically we've changed this and this and this, and we don't have someone like Eloise. Yes, Tielemans has been fantastic, and replaced him pretty quickly, but there's a midfield partnership that we don't have in Kamara and Luiz. There's different partnerships across the pitch. There's different things that we're doing. It just so happens to be that we've played those teams at home first, when I think, weirdly, we'd probably have rather have played an Arsenal, a team like Arsenal, more often than what we have at home, because we should have been 2-0 up against them. It's easier for us, I think, to play against those sides right now because we can hit them on the break. And that is easier for a player like Rodgers and Watkins, because it's less structured that way. Yes, defensively, but we've rarely changed from that. It's always a 4-4-2, and it's pretty rigid of what we're doing. But on the ball, that's going to change, and has changed. So playing against those teams, the teams who want to do what we want to do against the better teams than us, it's a bit harder because things have changed, and what that looks like is obviously hard for those players to pick up when they've just joined the club as well. So teething issues, I suppose you'd call it. But for me, it's not like a situation where we're trying to kind of lead teams on. Maybe we're doing that in possession, where like Brighton do, like we do a lot of the time, trying to kind of bait players in. We saw Martinez hold the ball, have it rolling on his studs for like a minute or something against Man United at one point, and you're just thinking, it's kind of extreme. But yeah, I'm happy with the start of the season and where we are.
What do you make about the point I raised earlier about kind of changing the way we play during games, that we drop off, we invite that pressure and struggle to deal with it? The 3 players that I named, I kind of leave Contra out of it, but Torres, we all pretty common consensus that yes, he's better with the ball at his feet than it is as a physical defender. Matty Cash the same. We've spent 25 minutes talking about his defensive capabilities, and Ian Matson is better going forward than he is defending at the moment, but still a young player, still could learn and improve, etc. But at the end of that game, when those 3 players are making up the 4-man defence with Contra as well, you do feel like if we just keep playing our own way here, that's better than sitting back and inviting pressure, because eventually it feels like we will succumb to that. But as I said earlier, if we concede anyway, we'd all been shouting, "Come on, Emery, you got to change it, shut up shop." Whereas I feel like the better substitute, who am I to suggest a better substitute to Unai Emery, but Cash off for Carlos makes more sense. You put Contra at right back, Carlos in the middle, and if you are going to sit back, you've at least got one extra player who you would back to deal with things better. And Carlos isn't great in the air either. So, do you know, it is a difficult balance to get right. But I just feel like if we continue playing the way we do for the first 80 minutes, we'd probably win. Like sitting off for 10 minutes causes problems.
And I think that change didn't come because I don't think the plan was to drop back and invite pressure. I think, to be fair,
we put Kamara on though, didn't we, for Watkins? That was like an indication of like we're settling for the 1-0 here.
Oh yeah. No, I don't disagree with that, but it was, Kamara's always a fantastic choice to bring off the bench in that situation to relax things, to control it better. But I kind of credit Bournemouth here, to be perfectly honest with you. The way they play it's always going to be difficult. And like I said to you in the pre-match that we did, Bournemouth score more like goals than anyone. And in the clip, if we're 1-0 up, what an idiot! Why did I say that? Towards the end of matches, they're more of a threat, which is never a nice thing because if Villa are only 1-0 up on the 80th or 70th minute, or if it's a draw, that will stay in my head, and I'll be thinking
almost a late goal here.
Yeah, because that's what they've done. But yeah, that's their game. It's not to score late goals necessarily, but in the final 10 minutes, they've got nothing to lose, Bournemouth. They will go direct and they will put you under pressure and they will be physical. Or now Evan Nilsson, I know came off, I think. But the point being that they have different options to hurt you in the final 10 minutes and they don't allow you to control the game because they'll make it frantic. Like against Everton, they were dreadful against Everton, but they'll put a few balls in the box and all of a sudden, one goes in, you're up against it. So, yeah, it's something that we need to work on to combat their style. And that's something that Emery said after the game. We stopped their style and stopped their idea throughout the match until we stopped controlling the match, allowing them to overtake, essentially. Kind of, we were winning the style battle than they did because we couldn't deal with it. And that's probably when it takes, I don't want to say dark arts, but something like, how can we break up the play there? Can we go down for 2 minutes? Can someone, I'm not saying fake an injury, but how often do we see that? It breaks up the play. It stops Bournemouth's pressure. Ross Barkley scored. That should have been full time for us. We should have managed the game better. And what that looks like doesn't have to be us playing tiki-taka football and playing a fantastic brand and we're in their half. It can be stopping the game for a period of time. It could be managing it better. And we're not just saying this because we scored in the last second. It's because Cash nearly gave away a penalty. Bailey, it would have been harsh, but refs may have given that as well. It's about dealing with crosses and preventing them from happening, preventing set pieces, because that's when teams like Bournemouth, will smell blood, essentially. So, for the final 10 minutes, it had to be more make this boring, stink it out, because we've scored once, which means we don't deserve to now be going for a second and third. If we were 2-0 up, then play your football, entertain the crowd. But for me, if you're 1-0 up in the final 10 minutes in a game that is against a side like Bournemouth, who we know are good for late goals, they will go direct, kill it. However which way you kill it.
Okay, let's move on to some questions that are slightly different, mostly away from this weekend's game. Gary, first of all, he had two questions. One of them was about Cash, and we spent the first half of the show talking about him. So his second question was, I think Emery will prioritise the league and the Champions League over the two domestic trophies. Is that a mistake? I want us to win a trophy soon. And another question, I'll combine it because it's weird to do them separately. James says, will Mings play on Wednesday? And what is your lineup for the Palace game? So this is our little section. This is our Palace preview, cup preview section, if you like.
Not treating it right.
Yeah. I mean, look at the way the domestic cups have gone. It doesn't even get its own proper match preview. It's just a segment in a Q&A.
We've answered the first question, haven't we?
I mean, it's difficult. We touched on it in the second episode of the Villa Social. I think Max Stokes said, I just want to win a trophy. And Dan Bardell said something like, well, Emery doesn't seem bothered about the League Cup. And that I don't want to say he's not bothered, but that is the sense that you get, that if we can just coast our way to the quarterfinal / even semi-final without really playing and being able to make changes but still winning, happy days. Like if we beat Palace, we're in the quarterfinal and we've not really done anything.
Like last year when we played Borough and I come on the pre-match, and I was very much of the same opinion as Emery of, if we manage to get through to the next two rounds, then we'll look at it. And Palace, by the way, we are a game away from the quarterfinal. We're close to being there. So let's treat Palace as an important match.
If you beat Palace and get a decent run, decent tie for the quarterfinal and win that game, and you're in a two-legged semi, all of a sudden, absolutely, you play your strongest team, because then you're a game away from Wembley. Yeah,
and this isn't kind of sounding defeated.
Kind of win a trophy by accident is the attitude.
Well, we kind of nearly did it against City, didn't we? When we played Wolves, we played the under-21s basically. And they had Leicester. That useless Italian striker up front. I forgot his name now. Played Leicester and somehow, come away with a draw away from home. Sound. How have we done that? We lost 4-0 here a few weeks ago or something in the Premier League, or was that? I can't remember.
That was after, I think.
And then Trezeguet happened, and all of a sudden it went like, it's just it can fall into your lap. I say that we were, Wolves are a decent side, and Leicester, we probably, but now if we beat Palace, which is no given at all, but if we do, and then you get Southampton at home or Sheffield Wednesday at home, you're in a semi-final. Then we'll look at it and be like, okay, two legs against, it could be City. And Emery, again, not sounding defeatist, but Emery, if it's semi-final, we'll go for it and treat it properly. If we get City away or Liverpool away in the quarterfinal, we're not going to put every ounce into that when we then play. I don't know exactly who it will be, to be honest, but it'll then be a Premier League game either side and Champions League game, and that is the bread and butter. If we weren't in Europe, we'd absolutely be treating the cups like it's do or die, because for Emery that is his second dream. He says to win a trophy. His first dream is to play in the Europe, and it's what we're doing, but do it every season. So it's kind of an ongoing dream of his. The trophy, his second element to that. That's something that we can definitely do this season. But let's just do Palace first, then let's wait for the draw. And if it's favourable, brilliant.
It really is like a take one game at a time mentality, isn't it, with the Cups? Because it is just like, well, let's just see what happens with Palace. Like if we lose that game on Wednesday, no doubt I will be frustrated because we're better than Palace. We're at home. I kind of expect to win. But if we don't, I would still think, well, Premier League is the one. If we went and beat Spurs at the weekend because we play a rotated side on Wednesday, fair enough. Like I'd take that. If you offered me that now, you rotate the side on Wednesday and you lose. I don't want to see us get battered or anything, but you lose the game. It happens. But then you go and beat Spurs. I'd say, I'll take that because I think the Premier League is important. And I know, given our demographic, there'll be a lot of people much older than me saying the Cups are really important and I want to win something. So do I. But I think what I said, just the kind of winning a trophy by accident, that is the kind of thing that I think is most likely. We beat Palace without really much stress or whatever. We can make a few changes, but we're still good enough. We get a good draw again in the quarters. We do the same again, and then you get to the semis and you can start to take it a bit more seriously. But to do all that, you've got to juggle the Premier League and the Champions League. And I still want to see Villa in the top 4 in the Premier League. I want to see us in the top 8 of the Champions League. And if getting further in the Carabao Cup means we drop out of the top 8 in the Champions League, or we drop into the top 6 or 7 of the Premier League, but we've got a semi-final against Arsenal to look forward to. Like the Premier League and the Champions League is more important now.
Yes, and
it makes me feel a bit dirty saying it, but that's just what it is.
No, well, it's unfortunately the quarter-final element is. It sounds like we're nearly there, and it's right. We are nearly there, and this is why it would be devastating to lose against Palace because we're 3 games away from Wembley. But it's a quarter-final that we have to play before we play like 4 Premier League games, 4 difficult Premier League games, Champions League match, another Champions League match, then it's a semi-final, then it's another... It's not as if we just play quarter-final when we're completely fresh, and then we play a Premier League game and we don't really care because we're a mid-table club, and then another one. That isn't where we are. Whether it's how we feel or not, I'm telling you how that's how Emery feels, sorry. We're close by the sounds of it, but we're really not. The final will be in February or something, and we have a lot of football to play before then, so it really isn't at the forefront of his mind. If John Duran scores twice against Palace and we win the game 2-1, happy days. Quarter-final, let's see who we get. Unai Emery put more into the Ipswich match than he did against Bayern Munich. That tells you everything you need to know about how we're going to prepare for Wednesday. Yes, we're going to be doing it properly, but are we going to be having 90-minute sit-down individual player meetings? I don't think so. We probably will be, of course, for Tottenham, because that is the big game of the week. It's not Palace, and whether people agree with that or not, I'm telling you how Emery feels.
Do you want to have a stab at a guess of where the quarter-final date lies in terms of our Premier League fixtures?
It's in December for a start.
It is December, yeah.
God. I'll say between Southampton and... No, it can't be that, actually.
This is a futile exercise, I'll just tell you. It's the week commencing the 16th of December, so it's after Forest away, half 5 kick-off on a Saturday, and before Man City at home, Saturday 12:30 kick-off. Okay. So again, obviously, we've got to get past Palace first. We're kind of just already talking about a quarter-final as if we beat Palace, and we haven't. I think the same will apply. We'll get to around Forest, and you go, Forest away, difficult, want to go there and win. Yeah. We've got one eye on a quarter-final, but Man City at home, like we beat them last year. Like, I'm not saying our season rests on we have to beat Man City, but that'll be the game of the week that week as well, regardless of who the quarterfinal opponent is. So if we can stumble our way through it and still beat Man City, you go, happy days, and we'll think about the semi afterwards.
For Emery, Nottingham Forest away will be more important than that quarterfinal if we get there. The semi-final is a different picture because that is then a valid opportunity to win a cup. I'm fully aware we can beat anybody, home or away, but there are still some big teams in there as well. I think it would maybe Emery would be looking at a bit more if half of the big six weren't in it.
Give me an 11 then. Okay. James asked whether Mings would play. I suppose start there.
Yeah. Can I start in goal first?
Go on,
I'll go with Gauchi in goal. It's not that interesting at all, but Olsen or Gauchi, kind of shows who's the second keeper now. I think Olsen was injured for the Wickham game, wasn't he? So this will kind of declare who is the second keeper.
He's been injured recently as well, hasn't Olsen? He was back on the bench for Bournemouth and possibly even Fulham. But if Gauch's fit, I'd go with him. I think he's the second choice longer term than Olsen.
Yeah, and Olsen's contract's up shortly as well. So Gauchi and goal, right back for me. It's difficult already, isn't it? Because we've got so many players. Would you go Nedeljkovic? Can we do this together, please?
It depends how rotated you want to go. I wouldn't go massive changes.
No,
I wouldn't be looking at changing the whole.
I'd start Cash. I'd start Cash at right back. For me, Mings doesn't start the game because I just don't think there's a need to rush him back. So I would be playing Diogo Carlos it would have to be Pau Torres because there's no other option. Well, there's Mings, but we still don't know whether Mings is ready to start a game, and if he does, he's not going to play 90 minutes. So you're saying he's either going to play a half. To answer the question, Mings coming off the bench, I think would be great in itself.
I think if Mings gets 20 minutes, I think that's a massive success.
Sound, that's fine. Left back would be Maatsen, and midfield would be Ross Barkley. I want to see Onana play actually, so Barkley and Onana, and then Duran will start off Buendia. I think Buendia playing in support of Duran, I think is probably most likely. Philogene on the right.
I'd go Philogene and Bailey personally.
Would you go with Bailey as well?
If we got this idea of playing him into form,
it's just because he's had a few niggling injuries, and you kind of want him to iron all those out. But on the left, who would be the other option? You've got McGinn and Ramsey. I've taken Rodgers out of the equation at the moment, but
that's pretty much it, really.
Yeah, okay, we'll start Bailey and then put Philogene on the left, but then change Bailey at half-time, maybe.
Yeah, that team should still be beating Palace in a way where we don't expend too much energy, get through to the quarterfinals. Happy days. Okay, next. Gareth says, with the January transfer window upcoming, we're not going to talk about like who we're going to sign and all that kind of stuff, because still a way to go yet. This is interesting, though. Which Villa player would currently have the highest value on their head should another team inquire about their availability? Obviously, we don't want to sell anybody, and I don't think we will sell anybody. But who's got the highest value is an interesting question.
I mean, it's nice that there's no easy answer to this. I think goals are a commodity. Probably say Watkins.
Yeah, I was tempted to go with. I almost thought about Rodgers potentially, but I think if you were a club, and no club is going to come to Villa in January and say, I want to buy Ollie Watkins. But if they did, because they're guaranteeing goals for the second half of the season, like he would start straight away, you would imagine, scoring goals.
Or even in this summer, you might be splitting
for a big fee.
You might be splitting this player for like 10 million. Like you could say, Duran, what is his fee? You could kind of write what number you want, really. So Duran on a new contract, God knows. I just think Watkins kind of proven Premier League goal scorer. Could we ask for 100 mil? Why not? You can't buy goals in the Premier League at the moment. The closest thing you'd get is Isak, Chris Wood. And obviously that's not the same kind of level. So I'd probably say Watkins. Obviously you've got Martinez, you've got Conte, Pau Torres. Jesus, I mean, you could go through the team. And Arna. Yeah, Tielemans. But I just think goals are the big thing here. So I'd probably say between Duran and Watkins. I mean, that's mad to think about in itself. You've probably got... I mean, I wouldn't want to combine their transfer fees because we'll be accused of trying to sell players again. But I don't know how much that would be. Strikers combined, like the fee that you'd get for both of those players. Obviously, that would never happen. But just talking values, it's mad, really.
Tony says, key question: we could genuinely win the league or a Champions League, but we need one thing for that: to be defensively solid.
I think we need a few things. Take the point.
Would you hire JT as a defensive coach?
Is that the difference to win the league?
Do you fancy it, John?
Oh, Jesus Christ, I didn't think of myself. Yeah.
I assume he's talking about John Terry rather than John Townley. I don't know. I don't know whether it's as simple as this. You hire a defensive coach and suddenly you are a better defensive team. Whether you hire... I mean, to go even further than that, if you hire a good former defender, that means they're a good defensive coach. Does that even add up? But the kind of main takeaway here is, kind of tongue in cheek there. We need more than that to go and do those things that Tony suggested. But being defensively sound is something that you associate with the top sides, and that is something that Villa don't really have at the moment.
JT, when he was at the club, not sure exactly. I wasn't really covering it too in depth. Obviously, what was 2019 or something. I don't know exactly what his role was day to day and what he was doing on the training ground. You presume he'd be giving his opinion on defensive structure and stuff. But it doesn't always work like Company, for example, at Bayern, they're conceding quite a lot of goals now, and he was arguably the best defender the league has seen. One of, anyway. So,
old shout, by the way.
One of Vincent Company on his day was one of the best Premier League defenders.
One of the best, yeah.
Yeah. Did I say the best? I meant one of.
You said the best, yeah.
One of.
Top 10.
Yeah, God, yeah. Jesus. So, yeah, I don't think Terry coming back would help that at all. I don't think he's doing coaching anymore. Not too sure. But that's just a name. I think in general, a defensive coach is the point here. I don't think we need that, considering we've gone from 17th to 4th. I think we're fine. It's just, we're conceding quite a lot of goals. We did last year, but we got 4th. If we score them, it's okay. I think we've been better defensively anyway recently, so not particularly concerned about it. I think sometimes, players need to carry out exactly what the manager wants on the pitch as well. It's, not all down to structure and tactics. Sometimes we need to just defend a set piece better in the 96th minute and not give one away.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Would having the best defensive coach in world football, would we have not conceded that goal against Bournemouth if we've got a coach in place?
Yeah, we've got the best goalkeeper in the world as well in the sticks. So it's not, these things happen still. You're going to concede goals. It's not everyone can do what Chelsea did in like 2005 or whatever it was when they conceded like 16, I think. Something stupid like that. So, it's okay. I'm not, we conceded loads of goals before. We've got Kamara back now as well. I think we'll be fine defensively towards attack. Like, we finished 4th. I don't think us conceding too many goals will be the reason why we drop out of the top 4, put it that way.
Okay. Russell says, here's a scenario. Villa win the league twice in the next 5 seasons, but it means that Birmingham City have a decade in the 2030s where they've not only made it back to the Premier League, but they go on to have a Man City-esque decade, winning 7 or 8 titles. So this is kind of a Man United comparison.
Legally or illegally?
No comment.
We'll never know.
So kind of Man United have only won a couple. Man City come in, noisy neighbours, etc., but they end up being pretty good. Or Villa win nothing for the foreseeable future and Birmingham City stay in League One. What's the foreseeable future? Well, the initial scenario was we win the league twice in 5 years, so we win nothing for 5 years, maybe.
Oh, sound. I'll take that. I think it probably means more like 50. It's a horrible question. Because of the first point, knowing that they would win whatever they've won and surpass everything that we've done, then why you wouldn't enjoy winning 2 leagues knowing that, well, we know what's coming in the next 10 years.
That's true, yeah.
So
if you won it twice and it was just a trade off that they might become good, and you kind of take that gamble, maybe. But the idea that they're guaranteed success as well, and it dwarf what we do.
Yeah, it's kind of irrelevant in a way, and it's kind of the point that like Tottenham and Ange were talking about, and Arsenal win the league and stuff. Really difficult, to be fair, because that would have handed Arsenal the league, I think. Or would it have done that? I think it would have. Yeah, they'd won, but then you got to beat City, lads. Yeah, really difficult. I think, put it this way, no one wants to see a decade of Birmingham success, success, not them getting promoted out of the League One. That's, Jesus, winning Premier League titles and stuff, that no one wants to see that.
I would pick the second option and hope that foreseeable future wasn't like a million years and I'd still be alive at least. I mean, what's the definition of foreseeable future? Google says, foreseeable future is an expression that means a time that is not far away or soon. It's used to describe something that you think will happen fairly soon or that you know can happen because it's a natural or obvious consequence of something else.
We'll take that.
You might say, I'll be living here for the foreseeable future. I'll take that. That sounds all right. Before we get into the silly question, there's a couple of Villa-related silly questions. From King81, in order for Villa to win the Premier League or the Champions League, Birmingham City have to... No, I'm joking. You have to pick a traditional buffet food staple to eat with every meal for the rest of your life.
Like, it depends what buffet you go to, innit? Chinese
Exactly,
buffet,
yes.
Indian.
So
I don't know.
I've narrowed this down into 3 categories. That we've got to find the category before we can even answer the question.
It's good to see that we did preparation for these Villa podcasts.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, the football ones, we can just chat. Whereas the silly things, like if we don't think about it, we just sit here and go, I don't know. And that's not fun, is it? So
that's a good impression of me.
Thanks, mate. So I've got like a funeral party kind of buffet. Like if you've gone to a funeral or a party, it's like sausage rolls, sandwiches, like that kind of
party food. Well, not
picky party food. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like picky, sandwichy, that kind of thing. Buffet.
Yeah.
You can have a breakfast buffet, like sausages, eggs, bacon, that kind of fry up kind of buffet food.
Yeah.
Or like you said, Chinese, Indian, like an Asian kind of different curries, different rices, that kind of buffet. So take your pick from any of those. You've got to have this piece of food for the rest of your life.
That's any food. This really does need to be. Can I just search buffet and then whatever comes up on my Google images? Let's have a look. Okay. It's a whole lot of
Spage food. I'm thinking of like
the only thing I think of
pork pies and
I mean you get those. It's that time of year. Well, it's not that time of year yet, thank God, but nearly when they start advertising like the Christmas food and that. So I've already gone into my local Aldi and bought some of these. You know those prawns, like the breaded prawns.
I hate prawns.
Oh, for God's sake! But all right, I'll go with that because it's always on like the platters and stuff, and they look nice. And then really, when you bite, it looks. I'm sorry, have to edit that. I love myself a prawn, so I would eat easily. I could eat 20 prawns a day for the rest of my life.
If we can go any buffet food, like you said, it's basically what food do you want for the rest of your life? You could pick basically anything that's good and go, okay. I mean, for the rest of your life, even if it was a good thing, the rest of your life is a long time. Yeah, I'm going to go like the picky option, like little sandwiches, sausage rolls, that kind of buffet. I'd go like, like the little, either that or little sausage rolls, like the ones that aren't loads of pastry, just enough. I think I could get through. I mean, all it says, it says you've got to have it with every meal for the rest of your life. So a couple of little sausage rolls at every meal, I could handle that.
I'm just going surf and turf with anything I eat.
The trade-off is Villa win the Premier League or the Champions League, so fair enough.
Oh, okay. Well, fine. I thought this was just the thing we had to do.
No, there's good comes
I'll eat sausage rolls then. I'll eat a lot of things then. Fine.
One other food-related one, and again, I don't know whether this is for us, to be honest. I feel like this is one that Matt might go into. Okay. From Dan, who said, like Dan's Sunday roast on a Saturday evening and my old workmate's idea to have bacon baps on a workday Monday morning, what ordinarily nice meal does John think does not belong on a specific day of the week?
I mean, really, I am not the man to ask here because I don't believe in that rubbish. Why would you wait for a Sunday to have beef or turkey or?
Yeah, this is a bit like when you become an adult and you have that freedom. Like I can go and do what I want. I can buy whatever. Like I can buy an Easter egg if I want and then just eat it. Doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the post-match show was Saturday, and my mum had done us a beef dinner. And like the comments, like you can only have a beef dinner on a Sunday. Well, you can't. It was a weekend. I enjoyed it. It was fine, great. But also, the thing that's annoyed me, my old workmate's idea to have bacon baps on a working Monday. Why not? You can have bacon bap on a certain day of the week. Like Mondays are notoriously crap.
To start your week.
Exactly. Yeah. So I reckon it's like you can only have bacon bap on a Friday, like the good day of the week.
Yeah, I know people who have like a rigid structure of like they'll have like Mexican or something on a Thursday, spaghetti or pizza or something on a Friday, and then they'll have fish on a whatever, probably a Friday to be fair. But yeah, for me that's not a thing.
No, I'm not.
I'm quite rogue with it now. Like if I come back from the gym at 10 a.m, I'll have my dinner at 10 a.m. because why not?
That's weird. That's more weird.
Yeah, but if it's there, it's like, chicken and rice, sound done. Why wait 2 hours to feel hungry when it's there? Yeah. Right, and if it's a Monday, I'll have whatever I should have had on Tuesday. Yeah, for me, it's why bother waiting?
We've done a lot of silliness, but let's do the silly question from Tom this week, who said, as a huge Villa fan, as well as a fan of the James Bond movies, my question to you is this. Which Villa player would you cast in the role of 007, and which players would you cast as the villain or the main henchman? Brackets. This is why I put this in. I assume John has seen at least one Bond film.
You know what? I've seen a lot of Bond films, actually.
Have you? Oh, well,
yeah.
I'd have thought you said no. You haven't seen any of them?
No. I used to go to the cinema quite a lot with my dad. It would basically be when a Bond film comes out. So I've seen like 5 of them. Casino Royale is the best one that I've watched. Sorry, I got distracted by the question because the cleaner came past me and I tried to like point to her. Don't know why. So you're gonna have to repeat that again. Oh, damn it! I always have to think about these questions and it's never. So henchman, Carlos, right?
Yeah. Or Tara Mings.
Yes, of course. Can't forget me.
Well, Tara Mings would probably make a decent Bond, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking
English.
like, yeah, true. I don't know why I was thinking about Paul Torres.
He's got the look, I think.
It's just quite smooth, smooth operator, and just wouldn't be a great Bond because I don't know what he'd say, but I
think you can go with this literally as like
maybe.
Yeah, I think you can go literally like it needs to be an Englishman because James Bond is English, or it can be like the looks. I think Pau Torres in black tie looks like a Bond.
Yeah.
Very clean cut, clean shaven, neat hair, that kind of thing.
I think Flo Watkins as well. Don't know why. John Duran would be the villain because I don't know, he's kind of a man that could do anything, get up to any kind of trouble. Don't know what he would do next, kind of thing. Don't know his next move. No one does. He doesn't. So John Duran villain, and I'd probably say Watkins. Don't know why. Just kind of can see it.
I'm going to give you a rogue shout for villain. Emery.
What?
I don't know. I just feel like he's got a vibe. Like, lovely guy and everything, but like you can just imagine him like the classic Bond. Spins around on a spinning chair with a cat on his lap, slick back hair, clean cut. Like holds himself well. Yeah. I can see it.
Yeah, fair enough. We can go with that. Yeah. It's a shame that the person who asked the question didn't give their responses as well.
Well, as always with the Q&A, I like people to get involved in the comments. So forget all the football chat. Give us your Aston Villa players as James Bond in the comments, please. If you've watched this far, then we'll know from the comment section, won't we? To end this episode, this bumper episode of the Claret and Blue podcast Q&A, the comment of the week from Lioness UTV on YouTube from last week.
Great name.
They say, we are not title challengers, but we are definitely top 4 challengers. One step at a time, as there will be obstacles. We will stumble, and it's part of our journey to react to those situations. We learn, we dust ourselves off, and we go again. Which I really like as a comment generally, but that was posted before Bournemouth. So Lioness UTV, if you're still watching, do you still feel like that? Because we've had a stumble since last week when you wrote that. Do we still feel this energy of like we are still good enough? We are still top 4 challengers? Because I do. And the video that we do tomorrow, where we kind of look at the bigger picture, you'll hear more from us and our thoughts on the top 4 in that. Yeah. But I just like this idea that we're not going to win every game. There is going to be bumps in the road, and Bournemouth is the perfect example of that. We should have won. We didn't. But can we bounce back by beating Spurs?
Yeah, precisely. Last season we lost at Forest and they weren't particularly good. We drew at home to Sheffield United. We dropped to the points in the season. We drew at home to Brentford and we finished 4th. And we were in the title race until January. Or, we felt like we were. So yeah, absolutely agree with that. That's how I feel now when we don't win, because I feel like we're good enough to the point where I'm not worried that all of a sudden this is going to become a 5-match blip. And that does depend on fixtures, to be fair, sometimes. So we have tricky ones coming up. But kind of back us to beat Tottenham. Back us to maybe get a point at Liverpool. Like we're that good that we can do those things. So I'm okay. And our squad depth is good enough that even a few injuries here and there, we should be fine. So we're at a point now where I feel like we've consolidated ourselves as we are a European team. No questions. We're top 7 team. We are there. And it just depends. Can we do the extra bit and get top 4? And we'll be talking about that in our next podcast, as you said, Dan.
Yeah, lovely segue to end the show, John. Thank you for that. We'll be uploading a new episode of the Claret and Blue podcast, a much shorter one than this one. But if you've enjoyed this episode of the Q&A, thank you very much for watching or listening all the way through to the very end. If you have, get involved with your Bond villain / hero comments down below so we know that you've watched to the very end. Our next episode will be kind of a bigger picture look at the first 9 games of the Premier League season. That'll be out tomorrow, which is Tuesday, the 29th of October, probably later in the afternoon. So come back for that if you fancy it. John, thank you for joining me on this one. Thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.